Welcome to our Experience Makers Development Workshop. I'm here with Chris Grant, and together this morning we're going to take you through some more information about how you can turn your experiences into reality, your ideas into reality. There are 2 workshop sessions. As we are recording this session, what we will do is pause at that point to allow you to give yourself some time to think about some of the things we've spoken about and do the exercises yourself. So without further ado, we will get going.
Thanks, Rebecca. Good morning, everybody. Good to have you on the call watching this webinar with us. So today is very much the next step on. We've had the introduction to what experiential tourism is all about and the experiences, and this is really how to actually create and develop that experience. Just to recap, though, at the beginning, we're just going to go through some of the the reminder of what makes a good experience, just to refresh your memory. And then we'll start looking at forming those stories. And in our breakout session, which we would like you to do while you're watching this as well, is start thinking about those local stories in your part of the Kent Downs AONB and think about the different special qualities and the things that make it expected and unexpected in that area. We'll then look at those stories. We'll also have another breakout session where we start looking at who and where and what your experience is all about. And at the end, we'll look at how you can start marketing and distributing your experience and the importance of being bookable. So there's lots to cover. So hopefully we'll give you a lot of learning points that you can take away, and then we can pick up again into your one-to-one sessions later on. So just a reminder from me, Unmissable England, we're the home of authentic experiences across England, and we're really pleased to have already worked with Rebecca and the team at the Kent Downs AONB and helped develop some experiences. And these are just some of our experience makers on the screen right now that are ready and running their experiences across the AONB, which we're really happy to have. And they're part of our Christmas campaign on Unmissable England at the moment, and they will feature also on the Kent Downs AONB website soon as well. But please do check out unmissableengland.com to see their experiences, but also others across the country that you might also get some ideas from as well. And there's the website, unmissableengland.com. Please take a look. As I say, we're an online travel agent with the best crop of experiences across regional England. So we stay away from the big cities like London, and we really celebrate the rural identity and landscape identity of rural and regional England. So a tourism product, remember, is what you buy, but a tourism experience is what you will remember. That from the Canadian Tourist Board, who really led the way for experiential tourism around the world about 10 years ago. And it's about creating those special moments, those special memories with your guests. It's very much with your guests. It's building that connection. And if you remember the story that I featured in our last presentation, that was about making bread in one of the oldest ovens in England, a memory, a special moment that you will never forget. And whatever your experience might be, create those special moments, those special memories that guests will go away and tell their friends and family and remember for a very long time. So really think today about the types of things that you can do in your experience to make it really memorable for your guests and build that connection, that rapport with your guests. And it's these 4 components, the main components that make and celebrate a real quality, good, authentic experience. It's the local resources, it's the goods and the services, the local people, and those local stories. And it's when we bring all those 4 components in, that's when we see that makes a really good experience. So the resources being very much the AONB, the landscape, the towns, the villages, the heritage coast, all those are assets, and they're there to be taken advantage of and to feature in your experience, and use them and celebrate them, and work in collaboration with other businesses, other organizations, accommodation providers, attractions, activity companies, work in collaboration, and also look at working, you might already be a tour guide yourself, or you might actually be a venue and actually you're looking to run part of your experience, but also looking to collaborate in partnership with another tour guide or an activity host as well. And the local stories, the people, it's you that make the stories and the experiences really come alive. So, and that's what today's workshop's very much about, is looking at what the stories are across the AONB, but particularly the local stories in your patch where you're going to be hosting and carrying out your experiences. And it's when we pull those four components together, that's when we find what makes a really good, authentic experience. And as we saw in the very first workshop, this is just an example of a vineyard business where they produce obviously the grapes for the wine production, and they bottle that wine and they label it, and then they often do wine tasting tours, and then they can actually turn that into a more authentic experience where the guests can actually pick the grapes, bottle the wine, label the wine, still do the important wine tasting, and actually pair it up with local food and drink and cheeses, and actually have a more immersive time on that vineyard. Now that can be applied to any type of business. It doesn't have to be a vineyard or a food business. It can be something, any of the experiences that are in this program can feature and use this same method of actually using your resources, your goods and services, combining that into an experience. And what we find every time when a business does this, and they create new experiences and they add new products to their product range, we see greater economic value in what they do. So it's not just a nice to have, it's not just experiences are nice and it's great for tourism, but it's actually great for your business. It's good for your business because it creates that greater economic value, and we see that time and time again with all different types of businesses, and not particularly your traditional tourist and traditional visitor businesses. We see this with a mixture of different businesses coming into the tourism sector. So from memory, you should remember this picture. This is my experience where I'm based in Oxfordshire on the edge of the Cotswolds. And this is my scone making experience in my home, my thatch cottage in Oxfordshire. And we have guests coming in for 2.5 hours to bake scones in our old kitchen. And that retails at £68 per person for those 2.5 hours experience. This one features on Unmissable England. It also features on Airbnb experiences and also TripAdvisor. And so it's all bookable online pre visitors coming to the destination. So in this case, the picture on the screen of two couples from the US who have pre-booked this experience 4 or 5 months before traveling to the UK. And this experience, I've developed it and played around with it and allowed it to evolve, and it very much features the people. So that's me. They're coming to meet me, a local person. They're coming into my house as a local. They're visiting a small village that's not normally on the tourist trail, and they're meeting as we go through that village a couple of locals on the way if we're lucky, but they're really connecting with the local story and also the history as well, because I've done the heritage and the ancestry, should I say, of the cottage going back to 1841. So I share that all about the stories and the people that lived in the cottage going back to that time. So it's about bringing that local story about the people and connecting the guests with me in this case as a local. And then the second part of that is the place. So my cottage is not open to the public normally. I only open it occasionally for these experiences. So it's off the beaten track. It's something special. It's something unique. If guests wanted to do this themselves without booking my experience, they simply wouldn't be able to do it. And that again makes a really good experience. If you've got a product, an experience that only guests can do by booking your experience, then you're off to a real winner. So if you've got something really unique fitting into your story and what's featured actually into your experience, that's great to have. So we go into the cottage obviously, but also we go into 13th century stone church as well. So it's unlocking those places that guests might not have access to or might not be aware about. So they might be going to some of the honey pots, and especially international tourists going forward, when they're revisiting, coming back to the UK, what we're finding is that they'll know about all the famous places and the iconic views and those iconic places that you get promoted internationally. But what we're finding more and more now, that visitors and tourists are looking to actually visit places that are less well known. So again, this is a great place where your experiences can feature. And that third and final element is the participation. It's the activity that you'll have in your experience. So in mine, it's baking the scones, it's going on the guided walk, and it's coming back and enjoying and eating those scones with the cream tea. So it's very much, you know, a hands-on activity using the senses. They're baking, they're making those scones. We're talking while we're doing that as well. They're having that activity. They're not just standing and watching me bake scones. In fact, I don't do any of the cooking. I instruct them and show them how to do it, and then very much they have their own mixing bowl, and it's very much it's fun, and they get to do that themselves with my instruction, obviously, and an old family recipe as well. So very much create that interaction with your guests, that activity. And you know, it's good to have 1 or 2 different activities in your experience, unless you're having something like paddle boarding, which is very much the main feature of your experience, and actually your experience is being led through that paddleboard activity. So it depends on what your activity is, but have a mixture and have a good think about what that might be. And we'll come back to that in our breakout session later on this morning, where you'll get to actually look at those 3 Ps, the people, place and participation, and actually really drill down into actually what they will be for your own experience. So here's a reminder of my 5 top tips in creating a really unmissable and authentic experience. And number 1, it's telling a story. And really importantly, this should be your story. So even if it's a story about, you know, big history and things that have happened in the past, make sure it's, you know, it's your own research that you've done and stories that you've heard and you've shared. So you really tell that personal story, so you have that passion. So you're not just relaying a story or you're lecturing your guests. You know, you're sharing that passion for that interest that you might have. And that's like Kevin up in Northumberland, who does his experience Live Like a Roman, who's really passionate about the history of Roman soldiers, you know, the Roman times, particularly the military and the soldiers around Hadrian's Wall. And he's done that research, and he lives and breathes that within his own experience. So whatever your experience is, think about your story. All stories, you know, good stories have a good start, middle and end. Tell that story throughout. Make sure it's, you know, it's not just a small part of your experience, it's the whole journey of your experience that you're telling guests. So think about what your story is. And again, this will form our first activity this morning, where we start looking at what those stories are locally and what are your stories in your area. At 2, include everything. So this is where it's really different to a classic tour. There's no hidden costs or extras. We're not asking guests, you know, to pay up when they go and visit a pub on experience or have a lunch, or, oh, this boat you're going to step into now, it's £6 an hour. You need to get your wallet out and pay for it. Everything is included. So, you know, we really encourage you to use, you know, our local produce across the Kent Downs area and celebrate that, and you know, make it a part of your story in your experience. So food and drink, whether that's visiting a pub, you know, a brewery, going out and enjoying a picnic, you know, make sure it's locally produced where possible, and fit that in and cost it into your experience, and make sure that you've included all those costs when developing your experience. So actually you're then passing them on to your guest as one price. At 3, it's the unexpected. So this is the surprise element in your experience, because, you know, guests, they want something special, they want something new and unique, and it's great to tell a unique and unexpected story. So this guy here, I was on his experience back in September. He's based up in the Yorkshire Dales. It's got a cave-in experience. And he told a really bizarre story about having a crocodile in this small lake, right in a mile into the cave system there in Yorkshire. And it was such a bizarre story, and it stood out, and it was really unexpected, because you're thinking, what the hell is a crocodile doing in Yorkshire? Actually, the short of the story is that they were filming an ITV a drama series back in the 1980s that featured a crocodile, and I think there was supposed to be some faraway destination, and actually they mocked it up in Yorkshire. But again, it's a unique little story, and it's little anecdotes that you have in your experience, and your guests will remember those, and they will tell their friends and family, and they'll just keep that memory of your experience. So however big or small that unexpected might be, later on this morning we'll have a look at what the unexpected stories are across the Kent Downs, and, you know, it's particularly again in your area, and things that you can actually celebrate and actually have in your experience and talk about as well. And as well as the unexpected, it's good to have some of the expected. especially at the moment. We like those comfy things like going for a ploughman's lunch in a really good local pub, having fish and chips on the beach, and actually doing some of those quintessentially English or British things works particularly well for the international guests, as you know, we'll see those return over the next few years. But also for us Brits, we like those things. They celebrate the good quality food and drink when it's, you know, in the pubs and or in a brewery or in a vineyard, etc. So actually it's okay to include some of those expected things, as long as they're done really well and they fit into that story, that ongoing story through your experience. So think about how that connects in. So you're not 1 minute, you know, on a paddleboard and then you're in a pub. You know, how does that fit together? How do you tell that story? And there are ways of doing that. So think about having some of the unexpected, but also some of those expected things in your experience. And at 5, we say this again and again, please, please, please keep it simple and remain flexible as well. Don't overcomplicate your experience with too many activities, too many things, too many venues, too many destinations, too many stops, and it just is just too complicated, or it's too costly to run, and you're losing money or you're not making money. So keeping it flexible and keeping it really simple is actually a good way to actually make sure it's successful. So here's another example, and this one featured in our last presentation, but I think it's a really good reminder as we go into our activity to think about you know, an experience and how it's actually structured. And this is the Blue John Stones experience up in the Peak District, where you get to go caving and you mine a piece of Blue John stone, and then you get to turn that into a piece of jewelry in their workshop, and then you get to take that piece of jewelry that you have made yourself home. And because that's a 6-hour experience or so, a full lunch, a picnic lunch, teas and coffees, interpretation of the geology and landscape, all of that is included and wrapped up into that experience. So they have those really strong key moments in their experience. It is a 6-hour experience, so it is a long. They have a shorter version of that, a half-day one and the full day. But it's really structured really well, and they can really identify the structure of that experience. So for you, I think going away, thinking about what your activities are and what your story is and how that works physically is a good way to kind of further develop your experience. And we'll be looking forward to hearing about how you do that in the one-to-one sessions that we'll have with you in the coming weeks. So a few more examples. This time, let's stay in Kent. Here, this is one of the new experiences. Be a Rebel Farmer, so an organic farmer. This is Ed, who's featured his experience. He was on the project and the program in the first phase, and now he's up and running his experiences. And we're really pleased that we've got one of his first bookings on Unmissable England as well for spring next year. So we're really pleased about that. And Ed's, you know, he's got a great character, he's got a great story, a great business, and this is very much celebrating what he does on the farm. He's a new business, he's a new farmer, he's new to organic farming, and he tells that story through that experience. And you actually get to get involved on the farm, and you pick the produce that's grown and produced on the farm, and you make that into a really fabulous locally sourced lunch, which you get to enjoy. This is a 3-hour experience, so really good to fit into an itinerary, you know, on a holiday or a few days away to Kent. So actually, you know, guests can actually do other things on that day, and they can have 3 hours dedicated to this experience. So shorter experience can work really well for guests. £35 per person, a really good price, a really reasonable price, because Ed's new. You know, he doesn't have any reviews. You know, he's going to be low on the ranking of Google because his product, his experience is new. So, you know, he hasn't got people talking about it, and, you know, it's just been launched. So starting off a bit lower than what you would like or what you would expect to price up your experience per person is a good place to start, because you can always slowly and gradually increase your fees, your per person fees over time. But really importantly, you need to have those reviews, and you need to have the confidence in your experience once you've started running it with real guests on your experience. So don't be afraid to start lower at the lower end of the pricing scale. And then once you've got a few bookings, once you've got a few reviews over the first few months or up to a year, then start thinking about what your price could be increased to. So don't start too high. Take you back up to Yorkshire again. This is the Wensleydale Farmer Experience, another farming experience. So this one is very much, again, be a farmer for the day. And these guys have been running tours and experiences for a number of years. Really gets beneath what it's like to be a Yorkshire farmer. So you're out there for 6 hours, £65 per person. Again, a really reasonable price. These guys get booked up all the time, and they can really design a collection of farming experiences, really. So you could be doing dry stone walling, you can be mending hurdles, you can be doing some coppicing. There's a whole mixture of different things that they do on the farm. So again, they can really tailor that, and it could be seasonally, seasonal, and really identify the different times of the year when they can run different parts of their experience. Really importantly, you have a lunch included into that experience as well. This time let's go a bit more north. Let's go to Northumberland. This is the foraging and wild cooking experience. Again, we know that foraging and wild cooking is really popular, and we're glad that we've got some experiences in the programme actually doing some of that as well. So this is another reasonable experience at £60 for 3 hours, where you go out with an expert. This time it is an expert that really knows about what to forage and importantly what not to, and they go out and they identify the different plants and foods that you can actually taste, and you get to actually make that into a wild lunch as well that you get to enjoy as well. So a nice all-around experience there. And finally, the Hills Hops and Hamper experience. This is in Sussex with Rich, who you might have met recently on some other training, and Rich goes out on his local patch and shows his guests the best big open views, and then you get to enjoy a fabulous locally sourced and produced picnic in front of that view. But also, Rich has gone out and sourced all that fantastic food and drink, and he's really kind of showcasing the region's best food. You go on a short walk, and you go around the ancient woodland, and Rich is great at telling that story, his story, and talking about the landscape, the geology, the ancient woodland, etc., and bringing that to life. Because we might know a lot about nature and landscape and all those kind of things, and actually guests are looking to be informally educated on experiences, sharing a passion about an interest like geology or landscape is a great thing to introduce into your experience, and Rich does that really well. You also not only get the lunch, but you also get to visit an independent microbrewery as well, and you actually do some beer tasting at the brewery, which I've done a couple of times, and it's really nice. 4 hours, this one is £65 per person, and Rich has got this on Unmissable England. He's got it on Airbnb experiences as well as his own website as well, so it's in many different places that can be bookable. There's one more. This is an arty one. This is a creative one. It is more expensive because this one's actually got a professional artist. So it's 4 hours for £140. This one works more well for travellers travelling from further afield. So this works particularly well for the French and the Italians, the Spanish, the Americans, the Canadians coming over and looking to book something really extra special. So and they have that dedicated 4-hour experience with that professional artist, a locally sourced lunch as well. So as I say, it works well for the international market, but also for the gift market as well. And as we come to Christmas, these kind of experiences do get kind of booked up, or gift vouchers, that kind of thing, with us Brits as well, looking to have something special. So something to think about if your pricing is going to that higher end. Start thinking about actually the markets and the audiences that you will attract or try to attract with that higher end experience. And there's one more, and this is Paul, who was involved in the project before, and this is a real kind of pilgrimage experience around Canterbury on this experience, and you get to actually have an activity involved in this experience. I'm just wondering why it's not moving. Let me click it. There we go. You can see more of it. And this one's on Airbnb experiences and other places as well. So Paul's your host, and you go out on that pilgrim tour around Canterbury, and then have that activity where you actually get to create the token, the pilgrim's token as well. So there's a bit of activity involved. It's not just a walking tour, and that one retails at £60 per person. Again, on that experience from 11 till 3 o'clock. And again, Airbnb experiences are another great place to look at what others are doing locally, nationally and internationally to spark any ideas. Just before I hand over to Rebecca, here's just a recap on those tourism trends that we're reporting on Savoy England at the moment, on what guests are looking for when they're booking experiences, but also just generally wanting from their next holiday here in the UK. And they want that sense of feeling that they can escape from bigger towns and cities and go to more rural areas. They want to learn something brand new, but they also want to reconnect with the great outdoors and with wildlife and nature as well. They want to improve their well-being and their mental health and have that feeling of feeling refreshed when they're doing that. They want experiences where they can go off the beaten track and go to places that are not overcrowded and that feel particularly remote or special. And they want to feel immersed in the local culture and the art when doing these things. And they particularly want to share it now with friends and family, and catch up with and reconnect with people that they've not seen across the pandemic time. But also they want to have that sense of feeling they can explore freely. And this sometimes can be a little bit difficult when you're hosting an experience, because we talk about we're talking about guided experiences. These are not self-guided experiences. This is when you're spending, or your hosts are spending time with your guests, for the half day, the 2 hours, what have you. But it's always important to remember that guests do need, 5-10 minutes here and there throughout the experience to feel that they're freely exploring. So allow them to take in a great view, go off with a camera and take a picture of what they can see, and eat and taste and enjoy their lunch. You don't have to be sat on them and with them the whole time. And actually that gives you a bit of a breather, a bit of a break to actually to restock and think about what you're saying as well. So allow that time for your guests to freely explore. And the final one, they really want to support local businesses. They want to support you guys. They want to have these experiences where they come and actually support and give back to the local businesses and the economy and to the local people. So this is a great time to develop and then get going with your experiences for next year. And if you can include as many of these different trends as possible, we really encourage that. I mean, there's a lot there. We don't expect you to include all of them, but just go away thinking about how you can actually feature some of this, or the feeling of some of these trends in your experience. And also importantly, how you can, once you've got your experience ready, how you can actually tap into these trends into marketing as well. So this is how you talk about your experience and how you market it. And obviously we're going to be helping you with that in this program as well. And at that point, I'm going to hand over to Rebecca. We're looking at how you can actually feed in your experience about what makes the AONB particularly special.
Thanks, Chris. It's really fantastic information there that you can all hopefully absorb and think about how that applies to the experience you're putting together. So in terms of the Kent Downs area of outstanding natural beauty, and I also realise that some of you are on the North Downs Way, which stretches into Surrey, and we work within both areas. We're just going to tell you a bit about why that's special, why the Kent Downs are working within experiences, and why it's important for us. But before we do that, we have got a couple of videos to show you, which hopefully demonstrate why the Kent Downs is an inspirational area to develop your experience. Chris, you may have to unmute for this. Great, thank you. And hopefully those videos really showcase to you the diversity of landscapes and the features that are really appealing to visitors and tourists at the present time. So a little bit about the Kent Downs. It covers a quarter of Kent. It stretches over in the west from sort of Sevenoaks, Otford area, all the way through to the coastline, and now the designated heritage coast, which is really exciting. And really, it is a protected landscape, which means that it has the same level of protection and designation as our national parks. They are all national landscapes, which really shows you what an important and special landscape it is. And the reason why a landscape is designated is for the special qualities that it contains. And this is a very sort of brief snapshot, which you can all have a much further look into after this workshop. And all of you, of course, may well be experts in some of these areas as well. So we have some rich landscapes and magnificent views really created through the geology of those chalk ridges that built up, a millennium ago. So as I say, that covers from countryside to the coastline, from the chalk ridges through to the ancient woodlands. And that scenery and those views are really, really valued by the public, especially at the moment. And of course, that geology creates the biodiverse habitats that support different flora and fauna. So from those ancient woodlands, those chalk grasslands, which are really quite rare areas of habitat, heathlands, the rivers and those hedgerows support, as I say, rare species of orchids and butterflies. There's a real tranquility and peace within the Kent Downs in what is very close proximity to, one of the biggest city in the whole of the country. And we have fantastic train links from London and all the way through the Kent Downs. So within an hour, you can be out on the hillside, out on the downs, enjoying that peace and tranquility. And that's a really big advantage for us in this area. But it also means that we have a lot of people within our local area. We get around 20 million visitors per year. We have inspiring cultural heritage from heritage that you can see, so that depth of archaeology, due to the built heritage, the fantastic castles and churches, all the way through to World War II built heritage. But we also have some of that cultural inspiration through art and literature, including some of the contemporary practice, for example, some of the art installations that we've just put in the North Downs Way. So that landscape is inspiring in lots of different ways. And as I say, the path well travelled, we have the highest density of footpaths within the whole country in Kent, and in particularly in the Kent Downs. And we have the North Downs Way National Trail, which also includes those ancient pilgrimage routes, which pass through some of the landscapes and near those businesses and activities. What we would like to do is to bring some of those together. But it is a living landscape. A high percentage of the landscape is farmed, from arable through to dairy, all sorts of different through to producers such as orchards and vineyards. And that produces a really thriving rural life with fantastic producers supplying amazing restaurants and cafes and farmers markets. And as I say, we get 20 million visitors per year, which supports a lot of small businesses. Next slide, please. We have been doing some research in and around some of the themes that really people are responding to, especially in the Kent Downs, and which are special to the Kent Downs. And these really back up some of the things that Chris was saying. So obviously our core is around walking and cycling tourism. It's around well-being, it's around connecting with nature. That has become increasingly important through COVID. It's around being green. People are increasingly looking for those businesses, especially small businesses, that have an environmental consciousness. And that comes all the way through your business to your food and drink. Is it traceable? Is it sustainable? Some of those hidden heritages. So yes, places, fantastic places such as Dover Castle or the White Cliffs or the Dockyard, really important, iconic places to visit. But there are so many hidden heritage places. So whether that is some of the archaeology, some of the churches with fascinating stories around them, people are really interested in those undiscovered places. And as I said, farming and animals are always popular. But again, maybe people coming away from their normal places of work to come and experience what it's like to actually work with the land and wildlife and nature. And I just wanted to come back and pick up a bit on the sustainable theme, because that's why Kent Downs are involved with this project. What we do is around sustainable tourism. We work with farmers and landowners to improve the biodiversity and the environmental impact that the farming has or managing the land has, so we can improve it for nature. But in terms of sustainable tourism, that is around using local suppliers, that is around looking at bringing smaller groups of people to discover undiscovered places, because those real honeypot sites are in danger of being overvisited. So we want to help people to explore further, but also in some of those off-season months in the autumn and winter to lower that impact of potential visitation. And then finally, it's about sharing that with your local communities and helping other businesses. And we are really keen to encourage partnership working in terms of your experiences. And also the environmental and green travel, and coming back to the start around walking and cycling tourism as those green ways of getting around. I talked a bit about the fantastic train services we've got. So wherever we can, we want to encourage green transport and travel to the places to help protect the climate and the environment for the future. Next slide, please. So the benefits of working with us. So as I said, the Kent Downs AONB and the North Downs Way are really key tourism attractions. They do appeal to visitors because of the quality of the landscape and the quality of the way that the National Trail is looked after as well. So we think there's a real benefit to you in working within that landscape and really promoting that point. But it adds an additional layer to your own story. So working within a protected landscape, as I said, tapping into those stories around hidden heritage, rare species, the habitats that the landscape supports, will really give your business an additional layer in your marketing. And visitors are seeking those businesses, as I say, with those values of sustainability, and we can share those values and promote those to your visitors. Again, we're encouraging networking and working with other businesses with similar values, creating similar experiences. And what that does is give visitors more reasons to visit the area and to return and to stay longer. So together we can really showcase the wealth and the depth and the diversity of landscape and activities in this special area, whilst also protecting it for future generations. back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Rebecca. So in this next part of the workshop, we'll get to our first activity of the session, where we're going to be looking at actually the stories. But in our groups, we're going to be looking, first of all, introducing ourselves and saying, you know, the types of experiences that we're looking to develop, and that will be already established within your application form. So I'm just kind of highlighting that a bit. And then we will ask you about actually what are those expected stories across the Kent Downs and North Downs Way. So what are customers and visitors' perception of the Kent Downs and the wider area of Kent? What do they think when they book a holiday? What do they think what they're going to see and what they expect to see across the area? And then we'll start identifying what's really unexpected across the area as well. So what things that guests and visitors might not already know? What are those really special and unique and unexpected stories that we can actually feed into those experiences? So go away, have a think about those stories, and we'll then feedback in our session, and then we'll move on to our second activity. So welcome back. So I hope you had a good first session where we looked at the stories. Now we're going to move on to the second activity. This is where we actually start looking at developing your story further into the three elements of people, place, and participation. So with people, who is going to be actually delivering your experience? Is it just you? Are you looking to work in collaboration with others? Will you have a mix of different hosts, or are you going to be working with a venue or another attraction to actually develop and host your experience? And then where, what venues will you be using? You're going to be using multiple sites, or you're all on one site? And if so, how are you going to get from A to B? Are you going to use a vehicle? You'll be able to walk using e-bikes? What's the transportation between those places? Or are you keeping it simple and keeping it in one place? And participation, what's the activities that's going to be involved in your experience? Are you having 1, 2, 3, or a mixture of different things? Or is the actual activity the main core part of your experience? So think people, place, and participation, and think about how that can be told within your story of your experience. So I hope you had a good activity too. Also, something to think about on your own is start thinking about your pricing, those group sizes, and the duration of your experience. And you might have a number of different experiences in the pipeline that you want to actually deliver. And you might want a half day, a full day, a couple of hours. So those durations might change, therefore the pricing will change as well. So some tips to remember: obviously it's the people, place, and the activity, the participation involved in your experience, and it's very much about keeping to your story. Work out what your story is and what you're trying to connect, how you're trying to share and connect that story with your guests, and include some of that expected but also the unexpected elements in your story and your experience as well. And keep it simple and be flexible. Can't say that enough. Over and over, more and more. I work with businesses all over the country, and they have great ideas, and they try and feed everything into one experience, and actually it's multiple experiences, and that's fine, that's good, that's a good product range, but don't overcomplicate it. So we are very much about extending the season and making sure there's experiences throughout the year, but especially in that lower season. So we're talking between the October and March. And there are some really easy and great ways to do that. And actually that feeds into our marketing of our experiences as well when we develop them. So you might have a paddle and a picnic experience in the summer, because that's great. And the weather typically is going to be drier and obviously warmer, but actually in the lower season you could actually still do that winter paddle, but actually celebrate that and actually make that into a pie and a pint experience in the pubs. You paddle to the pub, and you can actually play it in the festive season as well, and the wild, wet, and the windy. So don't be shy and don't hide away from our British weather. because it obviously is a factor, and actually play up to it and actually create experiences in the lower season that really play up to the weather conditions and those comfy kind of things as well. But if you have your experience that you can offer throughout the year, then great. We would love to hear how you can do that as well. And again, we'll pick that up in the one-to-one sessions. So bookability, we know having your experiences bookable before customers, before visitors come and visit the area is really, really important. And this stats, which you've seen in our previous session, but just to recap, it just goes to show the importance of being bookable. In two columns there, the domestic and the inbound market. And in yellow, we're seeing the 22 and 17% of people choosing their experience first because they found, and then they found their destination. And in the purple, they're choosing their destination because of the experience that they're going to do. And the final top colors there, they're choosing the destination first, and then they found the experience that they want to do. And this data, as I said, 2019, before the pandemic, 65% of domestic customers were booking in advance of traveling to the destination. So actually, now we're expecting more and more people, kind of 90% plus will be prepared and used to booking these type of things before leaving home. So it only goes to show, once you've developed and created your experience, they need to be bookable online so people can find them and easily book online with a few clicks. And then you've got them coming in a few weeks, a few months, in 6 months' time, a year's time. So you actually got those advanced bookings coming in. And there are a number of different ways that you can do that. And that's when we're talking about distribution. So these are your routes to market. One of the first ways is with tour operators. So we call this the travel trade. And Michaela, who works with Kent Downs AONB, is our travel trade specialist. And she has already, formed a lot of really good working relationships with some of these tour operators and DMCs, destination management companies, which you'll see on the screen here. So some of these are brands that we recognize, but some of them are internal brands as well, B2B brands. But they look for products, they look for experiences in England, and they're currently looking for products in the future, and they will distribute them domestically, but more so internationally as well. So they'll reach those customers and visitors, in Germany, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and beyond. So this might be an avenue that you go along. You might actually say, actually, I'm going to put all my eggs in the one basket and actually go for the travel trade. One word of warning: when working with the travel trade, they work in 2-year cycles. So anything you'll be looking at now, you're looking at very much 23, 24, especially with the pandemic as well. So it does take time. So, and what Michaela is doing at the moment is making all these, the travel trade that's targeted on her list, aware of the collection of experiences across the Kent Downs and the North Downs Way, so that they know that new products being developed, and having that connection with the trade is really important. So if TUI, for example, is looking for new products in the southeast of England, and particularly in Kent, they'll be looking and speaking to Michaela in that. So we'll be asking you during your one-to-one sessions if you would like to work with the travel trade, and then Michaela can start sharing the broad details about your experience. Another way to distribute your experiences to the marketplace, across the marketplace, is online travel agents, as we know them as OTAs. And hopefully you'll recognize some of these brands and booking sites on your screen now. I'm going to take you through them one by one. I'm also going to tell you about their commissions. These are the service fees. So these are the charges that you will be taken once a customer books. A percentage will be taken from that booking to pay for the use of their the bookability, but also those ongoing marketing costs, which these big brands, these big organizations can spend and reach customers globally, and actually can bring in the traffic for you. So these are all online travel agents. They are just some that are in the marketplace. There are many more out there, especially more specialist ones. As I said, I'll take you through. TripAdvisor and Viator are the same company. They're the biggest provider of experiences globally. So they have the biggest collection of activities and things to do on their website. Their commission is 25%. So that'll be taken part of the booking fee from the booking fee from the customer, but you're paying that 20%, 25% to reach that global audience. Viator is a big brand in the US, and North American market, so as well as the TripAdvisor brand as well. So you're getting that accessibility, that visibility across their platform. Airbnb, obviously well known for holiday homes and cottages and apartments, but in the last 7 years or so they've created Airbnb experiences, and they are big, but just not as big as TripAdvisor, but they are really big. Their commission is 20%. Now, Airbnb is a standalone platform, so they really like their experiences to be unique to Airbnb platform, but they have relaxed that more so over the last year or so. That 20% will cover you for public liability insurance as long as it meets the Airbnb's credentials as well. So if you're a really small, if you're an individual running these experiences and you're looking to, put your toe in the water and to get going, Airbnb is actually a really good one to get going with, because, part of that 20%, they will insure you to do your experience. Now, they have got some rules around, having one person on an experience, which I've always encouraged businesses to go ahead and do that. Now, for a reason, if you don't run that experience with one person on there, you will have a penalty charge on your experience if you do cancel. So there are lots of, with all these online travel agents, there are always kind of their rules and terms and conditions, and really be kind of upfront and have a look at all that in when signing up, to make sure you're fully aware and you understand what you're signing up to. But Airbnb will reach a huge customer base, and they've got a really good design in their feature where you can actually, once the customer books accommodation, they'll then be alerted about the nearby experiences that they can do. So if they book a cottage or a place in Kent area, then they can be shown about your experience nearby as well. Booking.com is really late to the marketplace with experiences. Their commission is 20-25%. It depends on your experience. But as I said, they're quite late to the marketplace of experiences. They're focusing more on accommodation, but there is a section on the site called Things to Do if you're looking to do that, especially if you're already connected into Booking.com. If you're an accommodation provider, you might be connected already. Unmissable England, we're tiny compared to the other online travel agents, and we're specialised in those regional England experiences, and we're forming that collection across England. And our market is domestic, but also the North American market. So we're talking Canada and the US. And these audiences tend to book, kind of 6 months before traveling. And they're looking to spend kind of around about £100 to do a half-day experience. So we're kind of very much targeted at those audiences, as well as the UK domestic market and the wider European market as well. Expedia, like Booking.com, huge, very well known for flights and holidays and hotels. Their section on their website is called Local Expert. Again, they're quite slow to the experiential tourism trend at the moment, but again, if you're connected already to Expedia, it's worthwhile being on their site. 25% is their commission. I should have said Unmissable England, it is 15%, and if you're not for profit, or a charity, then it's 10%. But we are also offering all the businesses on this project that 10% for their first year on bookings as well. Get Your Guide is actually negotiable rates, but it's around about the 20% mark again. This works really well for attractions or tour guides, or those walking kind of experiences as well. And Kent Downs, not exactly an OTA, but it will have a website, a new website, with all of the experience of the countryside collection across the Kent Downs and North Downs Way. So again, it's a great place to feature your experience, and then even have a link to your own website or one of these booking sites as well if you haven't got your own site. So they're just some of the kind of online ways to actually use the agents to get out your experiences. We also obviously encourage you to have your own website where possible, and if you link into some of these sites to use their booking feature, then that's great as well. Now, the distribution landscape, the tourism distribution landscape is quite a complicated one, and you will get a copy of all these slides. This one's probably more bedtime reading, if that's your kind of thing. This actually takes you through how it is from the top, from being you, the experience provider, right through to the visitor, to the customer. And there are various ways to do that. So, it could be that you want to, in the green there, you've already got a booking system that you've used and you like using that, and actually that connects you to sites like Expedia and TripAdvisor and etc. And that might be how you distribute your experiences, and that's great. You can also link into something called TXGB, which stands for Tourism Exchange Great Britain, which is a product by Visit Britain, Visit England, the National Tourist Board. And this is an interconnected platform that will connect into booking systems, but also the likes of TripAdvisor and Expedia, etc. So that might be something you want to look into. Unmissable England, we're about to launch our new direct booking sales feature on your website as well. We're going to be launching that in the new year. So there'll be a widget on your own website, as well as being bookable direct on our website. And all the other names there in yellow, they're all the online travel agents I've been talking about as well. But we do encourage you, obviously, to be bookable via the Kent Downs website. And, that's our main aim, is to have all the experiences in this project listed on that site. Now, this is one to take away, and you'll get a copy of our toolkit, which goes through many of the features I've been talking about in this workshop this morning. But one of the really important things to go away and do is to actually start thinking about your costs versus your profits. So start working out what your costs are and think about every single cost. This includes your time pre-experience, so looking after bookings, paying for booking sites if you're paying for a booking system, those online travel agent costs, so those commissions, those service fees, think of them as a marketing cost, reaching those customers. Think about actually the physical things within the experience, so lunch, and are you paying to use a venue, or using paddleboard, what is your experience and what are the costs on that, and work out that for per person, per group of 4 or 6 or 8 or 12, and actually work out what your costs are and what you need to do, or what you'll need to charge to be able to cover those costs, and importantly, make a profit. So that page is all detailed in our toolkit, which I really encourage you to spend some time looking at and actually work out, get your own spreadsheet going using some of those fields on there, and actually work out what your costs are, and therefore gives you an idea of what your profit will be. So importantly, here's our checklist, things for you to go away and actually start doing between now and the one-to-one session. Think about public liability insurance, because you will need to have your own insurance, unless you're going through the Airbnb experiences route, which will obviously insure you. But we encourage you otherwise to have your insurance, obviously, and also apply to any licenses. So this includes if you're preparing food and drink, and do anything like that, you'll need to have your food licensing from your local district or unitary council. If you're simply putting together a picnic and you're going to the local bakery and putting food and drink, you won't need to have that license, but we encourage you to have a food hygiene certificate. And you can do this as little as £25 online through your local authority. This just gives you a good credential to say that you're dealing with that food and drink, even that you're not producing it and preparing it, but you're doing the right things in how you store it and present it as well. So make sure you've got all the kind of the licenses, the insurance, the certificates to do your experience. Read through all the terms and conditions when signing up to any of the online travel agents or any of the distributors. Have a good read, feel that you're confident and happy with what you're signing up to. And if you're not, ask questions, try and email or chat to any of these providers, and make sure you're feeling comfortable with what you're signing up to. Some of them will have their own terms and conditions of cancellation, and you might be adopting their cancellation policy, or they might be adopting yours. So again, it's important to know how that all works, and read through and make sure you're happy. But the really good thing of any of these distributors and the online travel agents in particular is, if it's not working for you, if you don't like a particular condition, then if you don't have any bookings, you can simply come off that online travel agent, or if you have got bookings, you honour those bookings, and then you can then come off them. So you're not kind of stuck into long 10-year agreements or anything like that. They're pretty flexible, and you can adapt your experience as well. You can change your copy, and you can change your price and your times and stuff. They're super flexible, but obviously if you're not happy, then you're not tied into any long-term agreement. Think about your markets, your audiences. Think about the people that you're trying to attract. Who is your customer? Who is your visitor? It's really important to start thinking about that, especially when you're designing and creating these experiences. Who are you aiming for? Are they going to be families? Are they going to be just for adults? Are they a mixture? Are you going to have a mixed group? Or are you going down the route of just having a private group of 4 people so they all know each other? Or do you like quite a mix of people? So, 4, 5, 6 people, they're all, don't know each other, and they're from all different places around the world. And actually that's part of your experience. So think about your markets, and then importantly, how they will book. Will they book through the online travel agents, or will they be bookable through just the online travel agents and not through your own website? Or is it a mixture of both? So think about actually how they're booking and how you're going to manage those bookings as well. And have a marketing plan to think about how you're going to market your experiences yourselves. So it's all great being on the online travel agents, and that will bring in a lot of business hopefully for your experiences, but also that local regional marketing is really important. So if you have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, TikTok page, it's good to actually create a little mini micro marketing plan and actually think about how you can actually start doing some of that yourself. So even if it's like a £20 boost, during the next over the Christmas break, for example, if you had an experience ready, and start talking about how people might be looking forward to book experiences for summer next year. These things are really good to actually start planning and organizing yourselves. And the final one is really important: have availability. So when you've created your experiences and they're ready to go, you put them onto online travel agents and websites and your website. Make sure you've got dates and times, because if customers can't book, they won't, if they can't book a date, they can't book, basically. So your availability is very much your visibility. So make sure you've got dates. And it's no good running these experiences just once a month. They're not events, they're experiences, and they need to occur several times a month to be successful. So make sure you've got good availability. And again, this might be where you're actually thinking about having multiple people deliver your experience, so it's not just down to the one person hosting the experience. Lots of takeaways there. There's a few more just to go through on your next steps. Continue forming your story. So really get down to make sure it is your story. Drill down to what that story is. Plan out your experience, cost it out, and work out what you need to charge. And then obviously we'll talk to you about registering for the 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 sessions with myself and Rebecca, where we have that real dedicated hour to answer your questions and go through in detail your experiences. So we'll be expecting to hear in detail what your experience is from start to finish, so you've got a real good idea of how it's going to work. That's it from me. I hope you found the session useful. Please, look at the toolkit, look on the different online websites and online travel agent websites to get some ideas about what others are doing. And I look forward to catching up with you in the new year for the 1-to-1 sessions. Rebecca.
Thanks, Chris. Just over to me to give you some overview from the Kent Downs and what we are doing as part of this programme and as part of the overall experience project. And this programme is part of an Interreg funded experience project that we are also working with Visit Kent on. They are the other partners within Kent for it. So as part of the marketing that we're doing around this project, you can see 4 areas there that we're working on. From customer insights, which is we've done some options analysis, of which some of the themes I talked about earlier came out of. So some of those things that are really special about the Kent Downs that you can build into your own experience. We are testing our learnings, looking at some of those customer insights of the sort of people that might be interested in your experience. We're also testing some of those, so if you would like to, we can test your experience on our platform to test that product messaging and that concept with some of the focus groups and audiences out there. As we say, we're working with travel trade. We have attended various travel trade organised events, and we've also been doing some influencer activity. We're putting together campaigns, so we had a Find Your Space, which happened whilst we still have some of those restrictions going on. Going forward, we've currently got our Be More Outdoor campaign running, and then we're going to move on to some of the other campaigns going into the remainder of this year's project, which is next year is the final year of funding for this project. And then finally, we have a toolkit. So we're going to produce some assets for you, including an Experience Maker logo and some assets around the Kent Downs for you, as well as the Experience Maker toolkit, which runs through some of the things that Chris has been talking about and gives you a bit more time to read through those to help you develop that experience. We'll also be producing imagery for you and some copy for you to help you put that experience together. And finally, as Chris mentioned, our website is imminently going to be going live, and we will have that will present a curated collection of experiences that are taking place in the Kent Downs and which are particularly connected to landscape and all of those themes that we've been talking around. Next slide. We also, as part of this programme, have a grant programme, and that will run from the 1st to the 28th of February. So that will be when to get your applications in. And early in the new year, that information and those details and application form will be available on the website. So this is to help you if you require some equipment that is essential to either run your experience or to run your experience in the out of season. So responding to some of those different weather conditions. So that could be pop-up shelters, that could be campfires, all those sorts of things, or it could be equipment, as I say, to help you run your experience. The value of the equipment must be up to £3,000. We're asking for no more than 3 types of equipment. The way it works is that we purchase the equipment on your behalf, and then we invoice you for 31% of that equipment. And that's the way it has to work for Interreg. It must be appropriate to the experience and for the size and the scale, and it must be physical equipment. So we can't pay for things like advertising or marketing or staffing or anything like that. It must be physical equipment, up to 3 types of equipment available for you with a combined value of £3,000. Next slide, please. So, questions? I think if there are any questions that you would like to ask us, please do get in touch. That's myself and Chris. We'll also be going through the one-to-ones with you. But if you have anything in the meantime, then do please get in touch. You should have either my email or Sophie's email.
I think that's where we end the session. I think thanks again, everybody, for joining us this morning. And as I say, look forward to seeing you in the new year for the one-to-one sessions.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.